Hello, hello. I am Karen Jean-François.
And I'm Cecilia Oliveira.
And this is the Women in Data podcast.
Every other week, we bring you conversations with inspiring women who are shaping the world of data.
We dive into stories, explore challenges, and share insights and learning to help you navigate your own career in this exciting field.
And sometimes it's just the two of us, candidly chatting about our experience or topics we're curious about. Let's get straight to it.
Hello, we are recording a super special episode today, and it's an episode where we're celebrating the 10 years anniversary of Women in Data. And I can't believe it's been 10 years since Women in Data actually started. I remember the first time I came across Women in Data was on the first event, the first Women in Data ever. And I had just moved to London a few months ago. I knew absolutely no one. So if you've moved country, you will know how hard it can be. I had no friends, no family. I knew no one and I hated my job. And I remember looking for communities and places where I could find like-minded women who could support me, where I could get the help I needed to move on, I want to say, and find a role that was working for me. And that's how I came across Women in Data. And I've been following the community for the last 10 years. And it's just made such a big difference in my life. Not only my career in terms of, I guess, understanding who I was, Karen, as a data professional, getting new skills, networking, etc., but also on a personal level. So making friends, Cecilia, that's how we met. A lot of the podcast guests are my friends today. And also, the opportunities of starting a podcast with Women in Data, which is something I never thought I would actually do one day. And Women in Data just believed in me and said, just run with it. And 5 years later, we're still here on the podcast. So I'm joined today by Roisin and Cecilia to celebrate Women in Data. But hi, Roisin.
Hi, Karen. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Cecilia, do you want to talk a bit about what we're going to be talking on the episode today?
Absolutely. I'm really excited because I'll be very honest with everyone. I don't know all of this story. I'm discovering as you guys are listening to it. I really didn't know. But so today we're going to cover obviously Roisin's journey, what challenges she's met along the way, what's happened in the past 10 years in the Women in Data community, and obviously all of the impact and whatever the future plans are. I mean, I know that it has definitely impacted my life in the past 3 years since I've moved into data, and I couldn't be more thankful for the community and everything that is bringing me. So before I continue babbling on, Roisin, do you want to introduce yourself?
Again.
Again. People will be sick of my voice, ladies. I'm Roisin. I'm the founder of Women in Data. I founded Women in Data in 2014, hence our 10-year anniversary.
Roisin, obviously you have the Women in Data part of your day, but you are also working in recruitment. How did you actually get into that?
Okay, so yeah, I have got a slightly, and I use this phrase with deep sympathy, I have quite a schizophrenic day job. And that job, it's split personality in its approach, because I have a commercial organization in data tech that pays my bills and has done for the entirety of my career. It's my recruitment business that has been placing people in data and technology for data tech's been trading now for over 30 years. And doing that has been my passion. It's my skill. It's the cornerstone of my life. I've had more stability from my career in data tech than I've had in any other area of my life, which is really quite unusual, I think, particularly in this day and age in a career in data and tech. But it's what led to the forming of Women in Data, because it was a very clear trend that we were seeing less females coming through as candidate talent. We were seeing less being appointed by our clients, and we're seeing women leave the industry in their droves back 10 years ago, Cecilia. So that's really the start line of things, and where my career started. But I actually, coming back to data tech, I fell into recruitment. I fell into it. It was as much luck as judgment. I wrote 200 job applications back in 1999, to which only one responded.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of our listeners will sympathize with that. I mean, these were handwritten letters back in 99, let me add, people. We
Oh
didn't
my
have
goodness.
AI or anything to, this is showing my age now. I had one response. I also had to pay for the stamps for those letters, ladies. So,
now I'm just thinking, maybe you remember when you had the carbon copy of the letter? You should have just done that.
I wish I had. Clearly wasn't thinking on my feet and automating the system, but one response. And it's my business partners today who responded, and they took me on as a rookie. We fast forward 25 years, and it is my 25th year doing this. The rest is history. So that's a wee bit of a history recap. And Karen, I don't think I've even shared that with you.
I know. I didn't know that either. So like Cecilia, I'm learning.
I love this story. And I think it's one of those, like, it's meant to be, it's some people that you randomly meet in life, in a community, in sending letters, whatever it is, it does work. But why specifically data? Is it just because women weren't that much part of it, or?
I think, again, that's a fall in line. I think that whether it was marketing recruitment that I started out in, whether it was retail specific or any business line or discipline, I would have made a career from it at that point. Recruitment was intrinsic to my being. The reason being was that my mother was a recruiter, and she encouraged me to make those applications to recruitment businesses. The one application that got accepted or even responded to. I had more direction, if you like, Cecilia, in the application of recruitment than I did in an application of skill within recruitment, i.e. data or technology. That formed as we went on. And actually, my first gig in recruitment was statistics, clearly a subset of data right now, but that was the industry of data 25 years ago. Data as a job title rarely existed. You didn't see data analysts, you didn't see data scientists, you certainly never saw a data engineer. And back then, 25 years ago, it was statisticians, statistical analysts, operational researchers, forecasters. We've seen a big change in the way that our industry is PR'd, and I've had the absolute privilege to watch that for 2.5 decades, Cecilia.
Yeah, that's very true, because when I think about it, even when I started, data scientist wasn't that spoken about, and I'm not that old. So it's really
but I am, Karen, clearly.
Well, I didn't want to say it, but I'm just joking. But Roisin, on that, today you have a very successful career running both organizations, and just mindful of the amount of challenges that you've had to overcome to get there. Do you have any that you want to share, and then how you actually overcame them?
So I think that 25 years, there's a lot of challenges, right? I think that I'll start with the work ones. In my early career, when I was a lot of younger ladies, being a rookie recruiter who was female and who was under 20 years of age without a applied degree in a subject that the industry were elite to was challenging. I had to work harder than my peer group to succeed. I had to reinvent myself from probably the true likeness of who I am, and modeled myself on industry's expectations. Was that the right or wrong thing to do? I can't answer that question. It's where I am today. I'm going to go with it was the right thing at that time. I never wore trousers for the first 4 years of my career, because it was, I'd walk into a financial institute and there was an expectation that a female would be in a female skirt suit or dress suit. So small challenges that seem absolutely irrelevant in this day and age, but those sort of things that I would spend a day preparing an outfit that was correct for me to walk into an investment bank or a major retail bank. So the world's moved on, and I have to say I'm not that challenged on those sort of topics these days. But, the interesting part is that with age comes confidence. There's no doubt about that. But I did have a fearless approach in those early days, and competitive as well. So I wasn't going to allow what I was feeling were elements of being under-equipped or without the correct attributes to succeed hold me back. If I talk about current challenges or more recent challenges, there's no doubt the pandemic, I can't tell you how extreme that was for so many different reasons. In the day job, I had a recruitment business that was responsible for the livelihoods of a number of individuals. And keeping them paid and in jobs kept me awake for a very long period of time. And, nobody was hiring. Nobody hired that. I don't get paid, or the business doesn't get paid unless people get jobs. And for the first 6 months of the pandemic, people didn't move jobs. I'm very pleased to say that changed very quickly coming out of the pandemic. And because of our great reputation and sustained legacy and history, we done very well coming back from that. But that was particularly challenging. Going on from there, I think that my current challenge on a day-to-day basis is that there isn't enough time. I have got this bipolar or split personality deliverable that is, I have to keep a recruitment business going that is around putting people in jobs. Yet I'm also looking to ensure that industry are creating an equal and parity place of belonging for women. So they're both huge requirements, and I don't have enough hours in the day. But what I would say, the solution to that is just having brilliant people around you. It's not me. It's the brilliant people around me.
I think there will never be enough time, Roisin. There's a lot of ambition and too many things to do, and there will never be enough time.
Never.
Yeah, and you started on a very strong mission. Before we talk about that, I just want to say that I am so glad. So listening to your story, about the fact that you didn't wear trousers for a long time. I feel so fortunate that by the time I came to the workforce, although in Paris, that was a different story, but at least when I got to London, I feel so fortunate that, people are talking about being authentic and being yourself. And I can actually feel like I can bring all my silliness to work, and that's really priceless. So I'm glad that the world has moved on from that.
It really has. That's a measure that's true, Karen. And, I think that it took me a long time on from that original construct to bring my real self to work. And I probably have only done that since the pandemic.
To be very fair, I think that being in data or being in tech gives you a lot of scope to be yourself because, Roisin, when you were talking about how you were dressed, my job in the last 2 years before I transitioned into data, I still had to wear heels, otherwise I'd be told off. So, and this is not long ago.
Roisin, you are now on a mission to bring parity to the world of data and have a 50-50 split of men and women. I am just, not curious because I kind of know the story, but please do tell our listeners what led to the creation of Women in Data.
Okay. So we're going to rewind the clock, and it was coming up for year end at the time, or certainly looking at performance. It was a performance measurement period in data tech. So we were looking at success rates. We were looking at where the placements were coming from, who the big clients were, what the skill set was we were placing. And for the very first time, I decided to throw gender into the report. And what I learned from that moment onwards changed my world forever, because I was placing less women than I had the year before. In fact, I was placing less women than I had 15 years before. And I wasn't very good at my job then, right? So I decided to spend some time researching. My colleagues and I were really going out and trying to get under the skin of why the team were. And what we were learning was that not only were women's careers stagnating, they were leaving industry faster than their male peers. They weren't joining at the same rate either. Significant change in join rate from 2000 on to 2014. So I spent time having one-to-ones with female leaders. And I had one particular horror story of a woman who would have been at that first Women in Data event. She had walked down the corridor for a senior leadership interview, ladies, and she was so excited. We had done prep together that morning. She was somebody that I'd worked with for a long time. And she was so excited to go in for this internal promotion to what would be known as a chief data officer. And as she walked down the corridor to the role or to the interview, the door was open. And what she heard was the two male interviewers say, "Do we really have to spend all of this next hour interviewing her?
Oh, man.
There's no way she's going to get the job. And I'm appalled that HR have made us do this." Wow. So she managed to sit herself through the interview rather than telling them where to go at the door, which I would have done. The reality was that it really upset me, and it was quite harrowing. And I went home and told my mum about, I was having dinner with my mum that night, and I was telling her about it. And she said to me, "Roisin, you've got to do something about it." "Sorry, mum." She said, "You're the most connected woman in data." said, thanks. Yeah, I get that. That's my job. She said, well, don't cry about it. Do something about it. Put up or shut up. Get on with it. Create change. Have a voice. Give people a voice that don't have one. And that moment forward was when women in data became a concept. And we brought those 125 women together in that raining tent not so long afterwards. And Women in Data was born. And it didn't have a mission, I have to say, from that night to the event that we connected in. We didn't have a mission at that point. We just wanted to connect and engage women in a safe space. That has never changed as a sentiment or a value of Women in Data. But what has become our mission critical topic is creating gender parity. So, Karen, back to the question, what's been going on in terms of the last decade? Things have changed significantly, but not as fast as I would have liked to have seen them change.
Yeah.
That story is terrible, Roisin. I'm so sorry this woman had to go through that.
Can I give you the good news story after that?
Of course.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Here's the good news story. So after my mum gave me a pep talk, I went back and gave her a pep talk, and we said, we're going to get you another job. So we went and got her a 35% salary increase and a job where she was the chief data officer for another organization, and she lived the dream. So yeah, that's a true life story and something that will never ever leave me.
I love that.
I think it's incredible. There's hope. So in the past 10 years, I'm sure there's a lot of incredible moments, but are there a couple that you can share with us, like important moments from the past 10 years with women in data?
Yeah, there's so many. I mean, literally,
I can't imagine.
I have so many moments. The first one I'm name check is a personal one, and it's the birth of my daughter. So 3 years ago, Margot came into the world and changed it forever. But my goodness, did I think women in data was important before? Yes, I did. Now I know how important it is when you see the next generation, and whether you are, a parent or not. The reality of creating a slipstream for the next generation is everybody's responsibility. It did intensify for me significantly with the birth of Margot. And just recognizing that I'm seeing firsthand a lot of inequality in lots of different ways. Let's be brutally honest, data and women in data is a first world problem. There are women that aren't allowed to speak in the streets in some parts of the world. There are women that are under house arrest for various reasons, violence against women, etc. This is a first world problem, but it is the catalyst to creating change all the way through to those women elsewhere. So I do feel incredibly motivated that the work that we can do in connecting and engaging one another and creating a place for a unified voice is one that has incredible power. And I feel that every day. So it's not one moment, Cecilia, it's something that is constant. It's a constant feeling. If I'm to talk about particular stories and experiences, I've got to travel the world with women in data, which is, again, a massive privilege. But I think having been able to represent our community in places like Downing Street, in places like roundtables and think tanks that will lobby and impact policy for society, for the country, has been, again, a deep privilege to take that role on behalf of the community. And it does suggest, well, it certainly does to me, that the work that we do as a community has great place of position of authority and a seat at the table.
Mm-hmm. There's no question about that. And how do you think that the community has evolved in the past 10 years? I mean, obviously, like you said, you were seeing that you weren't recruiting as many women as you did in the beginning of your career. So how does it feel right now?
Years ago, we saw women in data fighting for a position of acknowledgement. So 10 years ago, I recall being asked by a senior leader who was male at the time, what did we do in our sewing circle in women in data? Did we paint each other's nails? Fact, that happened. I think that the individual would never, ever consider saying that to me again. And I am good friends with the individual. I genuinely believe they're a phenomenal ally, but I think that is the way things have changed so significantly to think that would have been okay 10 years ago to say. Can you imagine if he'd said that now on the 27th of March next year? Yeah. He would be lynched, I think. God forbid. No, that wouldn't be the case. I think that people would be outraged. There's no doubt. Whereas I had to suck up that comment. So I think society's changed. I think the skill set and the demand for the skill has changed. People recognize that diversity brings productivity and advantage. I think people recognize it's fun to be in diverse places and not be surrounded by things that look like you. And people that look like you, and processes. I think that the brand of Women in Data now has a very solid position in the industry that is data and technology, not only in the UK, but globally. So I'm incredibly proud of that. And that's something that I can see continuing to grow over the next 10 years.
I mean,
Yeah.
such an achievement, and absolutely the brand is definitely recognized and loved. Everyone who's been to one of the Women in Data flagship will tell you when you step into that space, it's just so special. So you've created something incredible, really the safe space that you were talking about earlier. You've created that for us, and it's just amazing. But earlier you said that although there has been some changes in the industry, we still have a long way to go, obviously. But is there any very strong, I guess, moments, strong changes that you've seen for women in organizations in the DEI space?
Yeah. One thing I'm deeply proud of in Women in Data, we've been collecting and measuring in this space. So we've got some really solid data points in it. First and foremost, not only is our community solid in terms of skill set and discipline, we've got more brain power than NASA. I'm confident of it within the community group. We reflect what good looks like, in my opinion. We over-index in every intersection of society that you can imagine in representation. So when we compare ourselves against the tech landscape, when we compare ourselves in lots of areas against the national averages, there's so many areas of intersection of society that we over-index in our community setting. So that is phenomenal. But it really is. That is because of the safe space we've created, Karen. And I think that is something we can never lose sight of in any of the things that we do. Now, where I've seen changes when we come down to it on a very, very granular level. When I started Women in Data, 3% of women held the top jobs. So that is the Paul Janes of the world, the executive leaders in data and technology. And I'm very proud to say that now is at 19% of occupational role. So big change in 10 years. That's a real flagship, amazing announcement to have. But when we look at the occupational role overall, we started our journey with 24% of roles being occupied by women. We moved to 27% of roles being occupied by women prior to the pandemic. It went backwards during the pandemic to now be seeing the same rates as where we were pre-pandemic. So whilst that's not a good news or a bad news story, we haven't made progress there. And then we're looking at retention rates. And this is the bit that really frightens me, girls, because if we look to the future, that rate of women occupying the senior level roles right now is phenomenal. But we are losing at a rate of up to 40% in some disciplines of data and technology, mid to senior level women from this career. 40%. We have got what can only be described as a leaking talent bucket. And industry call outs from me is we've got to patch this up and quick because we've got a bigger problem coming down the track.
Yeah.
We can pipeline the talent in. We can, focus on girls in data all we wish. We can look at entry pipelines. We can look at early careers programs. But if we're losing them by the midway in the career, my goodness, it's a challenge that is thankless.
Yeah, I think retention is such a big problem, and it's one that pains me a lot because I've been there myself. So just like Cecilia has changed careers and moved into data, I have asked myself, is data the right place for me? And I almost dropped out, but thankfully I had the Women in Data community to help me identify what working in data means for me, Karen, rather than trying to stick to all the stereotypes that are out there and finding my space from that perspective. But I really hope that we can find a solution to that, or at least not necessarily find a solution, but make it better. So, Roisin, what is next for Women in Data? I'm dying to know.
Some big things. For Women in Data. Another 10 years, I do ask myself, I'm going to be significantly old by that point. I'm old already, as you've told me today.
Older.
Another 10 years, I would, the dream would be that we've sort of solved this problem and WID isn't required, right? Am I hopeful that will be the case? I think that it won't be required in the same way that it is today, but I don't think you couldn't blow this community up. You couldn't dismember it. You couldn't dismantle it if you tried. This is a connected community that will stay that way and continue to grow and evolve and navigate the way the requirements of a career in data and technology. The things that are in the short term, shall I start there? That I can answer those questions, and then I'll go to my vision, if that's all right.
Yeah.
Short term, world's largest data event for women, happening on the 27th of March next year. So if you're not already registered for your golden ballot ticket, get yourselves online now. More ballot pools are happening imminently, so ensure that you're in it to win it. We're going to be really concentrating as Women in Data on that broken pipeline, or shall I say leaking bucket of talent, and looking at how we can retain and accelerate those female mid to senior leaders in the space of data and technology and equip them for the next phase of their careers so that we have advantage in the space of data and tech. We're going to see Girls in Data go from strength to strength as the infrastructure around the charity now blooms with incredible voluntary resource, let me add. The next generation are going to have the opportunities that we haven't seen. So I do see this being a level playing field for them within the next decade. I truly do. With regard to what's next for me personally, I'm taking a break. I'm having a big Christmas break, girls, and I can't wait.
Nice.
I'm just thinking, who's going to panic now? Probably you, Roisin, actually.
Yeah, probably. But back to the vision of 10 years from now, I would like us to have equaled the playing field entering the industry. I'd like us to be doing far better at retentions. I would like to see the gender pay gap not exist.
That would be amazing.
I love those objectives or that vision, and it will happen. It will. I'm more positive every day. I am curious, Roisin, because we've known each other a little bit. We've met a few times. I know that Karen and you are much closer, and I feel every time I speak to you, I feel like there is so much energy. You're a ball of energy, but I really want to understand, what does it take for someone to run an organization like Women in Data, apart from all of that energy that you clearly have?
Love what you do. Love what you do. And don't expect that there aren't going to be really hard days. But if you are surrounded with people who love what they do as much as you do, it makes it a lot simpler. That's why I would attribute my longevity in both WID and in data tech, is that I'm surrounded by people that I gravitate to, that have the shared values that I do, and they seek the same outcomes that I do, and they enjoy their jobs, which, you can't say that's 100% of the time for everybody, but I think there's a pretty strong proven track record on that.
For having interacted with other people in the Women in Data organization, everyone is so excited and everyone is so willing to help and find solutions, or, take it forward, I guess.
We'll see how they feel and how they interact on the 25th of March next year, Cecilia, because you won't get that abundance of joy then. It is it's always the analogy for I hope this isn't offensive to anybody, but it's like birthing. The flagship is, I can only liken it to birthing. So you run up to it and you're really excited about doing it when you're in the planning phase, right? Then you realize that it's locked in and it's going to happen on a date that's usually 9 months away. And then you spend the whole 9 months through different phases of challenges, unknowns, etc. And you're in the run up, and then you're terrified. You're utterly terrified, but there's no turning back. And then you get to the point where it's really painful in the delivery of this event, and then you're at it and it's arrived, and the euphoria is like nothing else that you can experience. And you mentioned it earlier, it takes 2 days to come down. It definitely takes me probably a month to come down, Cecilia, after it. And then you forget all of that pain and you sign up and do it again.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not on stage. I'm just there hanging out and talking to people. So for me, it only takes 2 days, but I can imagine it takes a month for you.
But that's the thing. We only experience that day, Roisin. All the hard work is on your
Yeah.
team, and particularly Henrietta. It's just, she's so amazing running the whole thing. I remember on this year's flagship when there was Maggie Alfonsi on stage and you were saying, oh, you're fangirling. I am 100% fangirling every time I speak with you, Roisin. And I just wanted to say thank you so much for having created this incredible organization that gives us so much without asking anything in return. It's not somewhere where we have to pay to be part of. We just make friends. We come in and then we get so much support, and it's so safe. And I know I've had a lot of ups and downs in my career, in my life. And I just know that there's going to be at least one weed around that I can reach out to and who is going to be helping me, even if it's just to have a shoulder to cry, or if it's just to shake me and tell me, Karen, just sort yourself out, which has happened. Or someone to tell me, told you so. But there is someone. So thank you so much, Roisin, for bringing the community. And I can't imagine another 10 years without Women in Data, or the last 10 years without it. So
good to hear, Karen. And to Cecilia's point, it's things and hearing those stories and that acknowledgement of WID being almost a persona that creates that change is the energy that I need to keep on driving forward. So thank you for being constant, being cheerleading, but also so giving in your time and commitment, both of you, to the community, to ensure the stories are told, voices are heard. We are spotlighting brilliant women who are changing our world in data and technology. So it's equal fangirling moment back.
Virtual hug.
Oh.
So, Roisin, do you have anything to tell our listeners before we close the episode?
The ballots have been drawn as we speak. Don't miss that opportunity. If you haven't signed up as a Girls in Data volunteer, why not? Pay it forward. It's your responsibility to help us level that playing field coming into the career. And we need more volunteers going out and showcasing and inspiring the next generation of girls in data and technology. So they're my 2 calls to action, Karen.
Thank you. Thank you, Roisin. And see you soon. See you in March, definitely.
See you then. Have a great Christmas.
Thank you.
Take care.
Right.
Thank you for listening to the Women in Data podcast.
We will be back in a couple of weeks. Until then, we would be very grateful if you could leave us a rating or a review, as it helps us not only to make the podcast more visible, but also to enhance the content.
And if you don't want to miss the next episode, follow us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. We're also on LinkedIn.
Don't forget to register to the Women in Data community. It's free. All you need to do is head to womenindata.co.uk.
Have a great day!